Hello, I'm Ian Scales, you're watching TelecomTV, and I'm joined today by David Wild. David is an ex-CIO at Essex County Council, and he's now setting up his own consultancy. David, welcome.
Thank you, good to be here.
Just to kick us off, could you give us an overview and a grounding in the way that technology could or should work for local authorities? Tell us a little bit about your time at Essex County Council and maybe the lessons you've learned there, and describe the work that you're doing now.
Certainly. I mean, I was at Essex 6.5 years, originally came in as the CIO, did a lot of turnaround around the IT so that we moved the entire workforce to mobile and flexible working. That was back in 2011 through to 13. Once we'd done that, we then moved into, right, how much further can we go around technology to transform the wider organisation? And I took on responsibility for all of place operations, which was about 1,100 staff and a couple £100 million worth of budget. Everything ranging from country parks through adult community learning, while still being the CIO. That period enabled me to look at how technology and digital could actually transform more fundamentally the services we provide. For instance, country parks, what can we do around providing online access to services to improve resident experience? Adult community learning, to what extent can digital help people live and work at home? Rather than have to go into adult colleges. The last piece of work I did before I left was the establishment of the Smart Essex vision and the 5 themes that we've embedded into the business plans across the organisation, which is very much around digital is not a thing, it's actually a number of things that overlap around smart places, smart movement, smart lives, smart public services, smart economy, and how they all work together to change the way people can live and work, to potentially improve their ability to generate income through to living independent lives for longer.
I mean, when you were telling me this, the thought that one has, and I'm sure the audience has, is there's a huge range of things that you've got to grapple with and understand, especially if you're working towards correlating the data in one channel over to the other. I mean, give us your thoughts on that, having now left it. Do you look forward to being more specialised in certain parts?
Very much so. I mean, one of the key things I'm going to be focusing on within the new business is taking the smart piece and actually building out in more detail what that means. So it's great to have some words, it's great to have some ambition, it's great to have some vision, but actually how practically do you make smart movement work? What impact does that have on smart economy? What impact can that have around how you design towns and villages of the future? So the work I'm going to be doing is actually painting a better picture around how all that will work together. You're right, it's a massive topic, but then digital is pervading every aspect of our lives and has been doing so for some time, and that's only going to accelerate.
Yeah, but I wonder about how much support you can be given from the council. I mean, famously, local authorities are always strapped for cash, and they have more immediate priorities perhaps than medium term. I mean, how do we get around that? Is it just a question of plugging on and trying to talk up the benefits and the short-term benefits?
It can't just be about the council. I'm firmly of the view that it's got to be around wider public service. So adult social care and health must work hand in hand to shape the way in which we can help people live independent lives for longer. Yes. Also, I think there's a huge role to play in the private sector yes. and in the industry about coming forward with very, very different commercial models that are better suited to residents that are out there. Yes. We can't carry on doing what we're doing in the way we're doing it because we will run out of money. We need to do something different, but we need to do it as part of a wider ecosystem. So my thinking around smart is thinking more around spatial and around demographics rather than around institutions. And I think that shift gives us more flexibility and opportunity to do things very, very differently.
Yeah, so people you could work with, I suppose, would be the people who are running care homes, for instance, where you could go
and actually technology. Housing companies. The people that actually, registered social landlords, actually construction companies. To what extent could you build in assisted living literally from the ground up as construction companies create that stuff? Large housing associations, what can they do when they're doing upgrade work to their accommodation to actually provision this stuff? Even better, actually, why can't housing associations provide the assisted living package end to end for their residents and actually turn it into a market opportunity?
Exactly. Now, there should be a little bit of coercion going with that as well, I would have thought, that, which is where the council and politics comes into it, that you actually mandate certain things that should take place, especially when you're constructing housing estates. Right?
Indeed. There are some great tools in planning that can be used to encourage the market. And certainly, again, when I was in Essex, one of the things that we were investing in and they're continuing to do, is the creation of the next iteration of something called the Essex Design Guide, which is, in effect, a set of guidance for construction companies on how we expect properties, towns and settlements to be designed and built in the county. Now, what we've done is we're building digital throughout that design guide to encourage the industry to take full advantage of what it can offer, not just now, but in future years, so that what we don't end up having to do is retrofit digital to something that's already been built.
Yes.
Yeah.
So basically, the regs say you've got to do this.
The regs say that to some extent. What we'd rather not do is say, yes, no, you've got to do this. What we'd rather do is incentivise them. So how do you do that? Well, if the regs say we would expect to see superfast as standard in every single property, that's your benchmark. But actually, what you want in the design guide is to encourage people to think about ultra. So why think about meeting the minimum standard where actually in 5 years' time gigabit connectivity might be needed there? How do you do that? Well, that's where you have a more collaborative conversation with construction firms about, you put ultra fast into those buildings, they're going to be worth more, people will pay more, and you'll sell quicker. Yeah?
Now, how involved should, and I'm sorry, I keep mentioning the council again, but I'm thinking in terms of that's the lead point. In terms of IoT deployment, and I'm thinking of IoT networks, is there an active role for the local council to say, look, we're going to set up a kind of, it's not a network, but it's going to be a collaborative operation, maybe using one of the IoT transmission companies, like LowHanging or something, where we're going to do this, and this is going to be the standard, and this is going to be the data that you're going to be exchanging. How important could that be? I mean, that could really make a difference.
Local government, in partnership with central government, it's never going to be in isolation, have an absolutely crucial role to play. The reality in local government is we are responsible for so much of the spatial infrastructure out there, predominantly roads, but actually a lot of green assets too. We have so much responsibility in that arena, and we spend an awful lot of money maintaining that infrastructure. That gives us an opportunity to actually influence how IoT could be deployed to create smart meshes across those geographies, which I think are going to be absolutely crucial for future of smart movement, and also to, if you like, make the geography more intelligent. So what we don't want to do is what we have done for the last 10 years, which is deploy IoT on a point solution basis. Let's actually move into more smarter thinking about deploying the core infrastructure that makes IoT possible, predominantly sensors, some processing capability with software, and the geography itself, but implement in a way that enables you to deploy new applications as and when you need them, rather than just having one sensor doing one thing. Yeah.
And it can become a draw for companies. I mean, you can say the council provides broadband, it also provides a free IoT platform for you to use. It's a good way of getting companies to come in.
Or a commercial IoT platform. Now, think in terms, if you have a smart mesh across the entire road network, which is based on street furniture, that means you have tens of thousands of fixed points, or hundreds of thousands of fixed points, against which you could triangulate autonomous vehicles. One mobile sensor to two fixed, which means the degree of accuracy with which you could manage autonomous transportation would be much greater. That's a huge commercial opportunity for transportation of the future. Think also about bus companies and other forms of public transportation, and the commercial opportunity there to make their offer far more efficient and perhaps break out into demand responsive transport. Big opportunities there. So there is a fundamental question, I think, around if the taxpayer is having to pay to invest in this infrastructure, and there is a commercial opportunity for companies to generate revenue and profit from the back of that, it's only right that the taxpayer should see a return on that investment. The other bit related to that, of course, is that return on investment can be used to sustain the investment in keeping, that infrastructure current.
So, in terms of specific applications then, with your experience, what do you think of the low-hanging fruit in terms of what can be done on a smart city basis?
I think what we're seeing is on Smart City, there's some very exciting stuff out of Dubai, out of Singapore, and increasingly in London actually. We've seen some quite cool stuff. My challenge from Essex is cities are easy. It's countryside that's difficult. And I think there are some lessons to learn in the urban environment that we need to be able to deploy in a rural environment. But the economics are very, very different. Yeah. What are the low-hanging fruit? I think the low-hanging fruit is that the sensors and the hardware are there, they work. We just need to ensure that when we deploy them, we get a little bit further up the tree to make sure the network connectivity can support that infrastructure. Back to my earlier point about building infrastructure that's smart and you can deploy new applications on rather than locking into one solution, I think is absolutely crucial going forward. I think the final bit around that is, you know, the opportunity with the commercial sector to take advantage of this stuff. I think we need to be having those conversations now. They're beginning, largely, funnily enough, in the adult social care arena, around supported living and the ability for people to stay in their own homes for longer. If I take Essex, just as an example, you know, the domiciliary care market, older people in Essex, is worth £1 billion a year. Only half of that is taxpayer funded. The rest, people pay for themselves. So there's a huge commercial opportunity to take IoT, people's lives, and actually give people what they want, which is not to go into residential care so quickly and have an independent life for longer. We should absolutely push and drive that.
Absolutely. Good note to end on. Thank you very much, David. Great stuff.
Cheers.